Okay, good evening. It is now 6 o'clock, so if I could start the meeting. Thank you for attending this hybrid meeting of the Scrutiny Committee, with some members at the COVID Secure Civic Centre and some members joining by Microsoft Teams. For those who don't know me, I'm Councillor David Howarth and I'm the chair of the committee. Please note that this is an audio and video meeting. It's being recorded and the stream will also be live on YouTube. The web address for this is displayed on the Council's website. Members are asked to keep their microphone on mute and only unmute when they wish to speak. The Cabinet member and officers will present the report and I will then invite committee members to ask any questions. If any committee members wish to speak, you should raise your hand and then I will invite you in order. Following committee members, I will then invite members not on committee to ask any questions. Before we start the meeting with the first item of apologies for absence, very sadly, one of our colleagues, Councillor Colin Clark, has recently passed away. It was his funeral today, and this is probably one of the first meetings we've had involving members since that sad news was revealed. So if I could just start by asking everybody to just observe a minute's silence in memory of Councillor Colin Clark. Thank you. If I could now ask for apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Mal Donoghue and Councillor Stephen Thilborn.
Thank you. Councillor Karen Walton, can I just bring you in?
Yes, I've just had a phone call from Councillor Jim Marsh. He doesn't seem to be able to get him back into this meeting. He was at the meeting that we had previously, but he's unable to access this meeting. I don't know if Charlotte can contact him or anything to help him.
Right, okay, we will do what we can to try and bring him back. Item 2 is minutes of the meeting from Monday the 8th of February. Can we agree those as a correct record? I'm seeing nods, so I'll take that as agreed. Do we have any declarations of interest? In which case that takes us to item 4, which is matters arising from previous scrutiny meetings. Do we have any questions at this stage? In which case that takes us to item 5, and if I could welcome Councillor McTitherington, the Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing, along with Jennifer Mullin, who's the Director of Communities. And if I could invite Councillor Titherington to give us a short précis of what you're most proud of from your portfolio over the last 12 months.
Well, I noted the emphasis on short there, so I will endeavour to be brief. I mean, I think I have an undeserved reputation for speaking at length, so what I'm going to try and do is be brief, because I do have pleasure in presenting this report this evening on the progress that has been made under the health and wellbeing portfolio. And in so doing, I want to thank the officers, not just for the work that they've done in compiling the report, but also the sterling work that they have done during the last 12 months and beyond, because that has required a lot of agility in terms of flexibility in working, adapting and doing various things to meet with the COVID crisis. So I hope the report is detailed enough for the committee. I think it shows the dynamics that are involved in the portfolio, and I think everybody knows the passion and that I have and the administration has in tackling the causes of health inequalities. Because I think when you talk about health inequalities, you should read inequalities. And I think that that's why health and well-being is at the core of everything that we do as an administration. I think we're all aware now of what the health determinants are, and that 70% of those determinants are related to public health and the responsibility or the influence that we can have as a local authority. And what we've set about doing, not just in this portfolio, but in other my colleagues' portfolios, is to tackle in a strategic and systematic way the difficulties that our people are experiencing when it comes to health and well-being. And I think that we probably have to view it in three related components. First of all, we have to look at it pre-COVID, when we know that after 10 years of austerity, that the inequalities had got worse. I know that the Scrutiny Committee has got a task group looking at the health inequalities, and I anxiously look forward to the recommendations there. But I think it's already identified that when you look at the Marmot report of 10 years ago and you look at it 10 years on, the fact is that those inequalities have got worse. So what we had is a situation where we had quite severe inequalities within our society. Then we had the COVID crisis, during which, and we all know that those who were living in hardship prior to the COVID crisis have been hit hardest. So then when we've got to be, and I think that if you look at the report, I think we can compliment ourselves on the way that we have endeavoured to treat the worst aspects of the COVID crisis. But in saying that, I'm not in any way being complacent, and I look forward to any sort of recommendations of what we, from the Scrutiny Committee on what we can do in terms of sort of improving and addressing the inequalities. But the third step is that how do we handle the future? And I think there's got to be no going back. We've got to claim the future, because prior to the COVID crisis, it wasn't acceptable, and some people have now related the COVID crisis to wartime. And I think those of us, I think anybody who cast their mind back during wartime, when people said with the Beveridge report is that we can't go back to the situation that existed in the 30s. And I think it's probably time now for us to at least revisit or have a new Beveridge report in tackling the situation that exists within society. So once again, just before I open it to questions, just thank the officers for the work that they have done and commend them in trying to deliver what we've asked of them in terms of addressing those inequalities and improving the health and well-being of our residents. And I'll take questions from there, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, the first question I do have is from Councillor Will Adams.
Thank you, Chair. What are your key priorities for your portfolio in the future?
Well, I think the key priorities of the administration are, if you look at those health determinants that have been identified, certainly we've got the situation in regards to the economics and the jobs, and Councillor Aniela Galinsky-Gelder is doing some work there with the community wealth building, because what we want is people to have real jobs where they can have an income, where they can enjoy the decent things in life, like a reasonable home, being able to feed themselves and their children, and being able to heat their houses, and then to take exercise. And what if you look at the report and what we've been endeavouring to do under this portfolio is make with the leisure and sports strategy, what we're trying to do there is to make leisure and activity accessible to all. I mean, and in the strategy we talk about, and in the report talk about leisure local. So what one of the priorities will be is to try and get people, more of our people, more active, and that means at a very, very early age. I think beyond that, obviously, a major, well, I mean, I've said it before, we're drinking in the last chance saloon as far as the environment is concerned. We've got a climate change emergency working group that is formulating an action plan that is being out for consultation. I think because of COVID, we might be putting that out again to get a bit more responses, but that will be a priority. Air quality within the borough is another priority. Dealing with the homelessness is another priority. Community safety is a priority. Community resilience that I've been talking about in terms of health inequalities is a priority. So all those things that go in and dovetail into making and improving the health and well-being of our residents is a priority.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Colin Clark? Oh, sorry, Councillor Colin Coulton. I do apologise.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Coulton, just before you ask your question, Councillor Green, are you wanting to come in on the answer that was just given?
Yes, if I may, please.
Yes, if I can bring Councillor Green in first, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Coulton.
Yeah, so thank you to Councillor Tiverington for setting out his priorities, which is quite a list of priorities and very laudable. However, does he have any top priorities out of that list? Because you've always got to focus on some in particular. So I'm just wondering what his top couple of priorities may be, whilst he'll still keep wanting to push forward with all the others. But just a view on which his top two priorities will be might be helpful. Thank you.
I don't think I do prioritise them, because they are all of equal value and they make an equal contribution to what we're trying to achieve in raising and improving the health and well-being of our residents. I think if you started to sort of say that one is a priority over another, then you will be missing the point, really. Is it because it's on all those fronts? I mean, and those health determinants have been identified, and it's important and imperative that we do attack those equally, all those health determinants. So I can't really give you a top five. I mean, I think it would be wrong to give a top five. They're all equally important.
Okay, Councillor Coulton.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Councillor. I was wondering, how do you measure the success of your portfolio, both now and also how will you measure the success in the future, say in 12 months' time?
Well, I think in terms of measuring, you know, how we're advancing is, first of all, at this stage, and if you see in the report, it's all those things that we have been working on, and many of those things will take time to sort of come to fruition. Some of them are, you know, you can see an identifiable improvement. If you look at homelessness, for instance, is that I think we've been successful, certainly because of, different policies and funding and everything else, to make sure that we haven't got any rough sleepers, and we've been dealing with those people who've, potentially becoming homeless. So we've been dealing with them. In terms of sort of tree planting, we promised that we would plant, a tree for every resident. I believe that we're on track for doing that, and probably will get the 110,000 in by the 3rd year. So I mean, that's a success. I think in terms of, well, it's not my portfolio, but I mean in terms of creating jobs and inward investment, I think we're making progress on that with the social value, which will be a contributory factor as far as health and well-being is concerned. But I think in terms of leisure, I mean, with the leisure strategy, I think we are making really, really big progress there, because we've already, well, we're bringing the leisure back in-house. We've got that strategy about leisure local. We've got the sports development team working on that. We've got the leisure team working on that. And I think that we've got the situation with playing pitches, 3G pitches. So there's an awful lot of things going on. We've got the investments that's going into the leisure centres. So all the strategy is there, and I think how we will measure that is, how successful we have been in terms of engaging people with activities, activities of their choice. I mean, we've also got with the green links and investments in the parks. So everything is sort of, progressing to encourage people to get out there and enjoy the delights of the borough. So, I mean, I think in terms of measuring it, if people have that feel-good factor when we come out of this COVID, then in 12 months' time, 1, I hope that we're back to a degree of normality. 3, I hope that people are participating in activities that they want to. I hope that they've got jobs that they enjoy and are reasonably rewarding. And I hope that we've, the investments in our parks and playgrounds is that, people are sort of, children are enjoying that.
Can I just come in again? Along the things that you want to do, but how would you specifically measure the success of your aspirations? That's, you mentioned leisure centre, uptake in leisure centre. Are you aiming for a percentage increase in the uptake in leisure, the visit to leisure centres, and increasing people swimming and people exercising, etc.
Yeah.
So can I just bring Jennifer Mullin in at this point?
At the moment we're doing business plans for each of the areas, and part of that business plan is to look at performance indicators. So each area of work that we've got has got specific performance indicators which will be presented to scrutiny. So, for example, with the food, it will be the number of inspections, the trees, number of trees planted. For homelessness, it will be the number of presentations that we've been able to avoid homelessness with. And the same will go for leisure. It'll be, and our sports development team, it will be the number of people who take part in activities, and there'll be the number of people attending leisure centres. So each one of those will have a performance indicator for scrutiny to review 4 times a year, and obviously that will go then through to cabinet. So we're just at the process of agreeing performance indicators and ones that have a value for each of the teams. So we'll be able to demonstrate once a quarter to show what the teams have done and the impact they've had on the services.
When will all this come to fruition? It sounds excellent, what you
Yeah,
what you suggested you're going to do, but when will this be up and running, as it were?
Right. So the teams have got the performance indicators together now. They have to go through to the corporate team, who will put it on a performance monitoring system. So when the quarter reports are put to yourselves at Scrutiny, they will all be on there, all the different performance for each area. So they'll demonstrate every quarter what we've done. So hopefully that will be ready for the. It won't be this quarter coming, the next quarter. So the first quarter of the next financial year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I bring Neil Anderson in as well, please?
Just to add to Jennifer's comments and Councillor Tiffany's comments, obviously Councillor Coulton, in terms of leisure centres, they won't open until the 12th of April, in line with government regulations, and we can only open certain activities and do certain things, again in line with COVID. So the leisure centres themselves won't be fully open probably till the end of May, and actually truly until social distancing it's kind of ends. So we're absolutely looking to get as many people back to using leisure centres as we can straight away, and we've got campaigns about how we're going to do that internally and externally. But it's worth noting that the first figures that you'll see of Scrutiny Committee will look a bit skewed, because obviously we can only offer certain activities as we move out of lockdown. But you're quite right, the KPIs, as Jennifer said, and Councillor Tiffany has alluded to, will be about percentage increases, because ultimately we want, as the strategy outlines, we want more people using leisure centres, and particularly more people from groups in communities and areas of the borough that traditionally haven't used leisure centres, or gone to community centres, or used school facilities. And that's the real key about how we'll get judged, is can we attract new audiences, can we reach communities that perhaps traditionally haven't been active in the past.
Okay, perhaps when we have the next report to Scrutiny, we could have it with some more detail as to whether those have been arrived at or not. Perhaps that'll be a recommendation later on. Can I bring in Councillor Karen Walton?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Councillor Titherington. My question refers to page 17, paragraph 10, and it's about the decision of formally taking the leisure facilities back in-house. Please, could you let us know how preparations are going along for bringing the leisure centres in-house? And is everything on track and ready for the transfer on the 1st of April?
Yes, I mean, I think everybody will recognise is that. I mean, it has been a challenging operation to bring it in-house, to get all the contracts transferred over, dealing with 2P, dealing with all the supply contracts and everything else, but and also the management structure. And I'm pleased to report is that we are on track with that. We made significant progress, and you know we'll be ready to go when the transfer takes place on the 1st of April. Although, as it's been said, we won't be opening leisure centres until the 12th of April. Yeah, but I'm happy with the progress.
Okay, can I come back with another question?
Yeah.
It's about the leisure local, and it says that the leisure local model of operation is targeted areas where traditional sports and leisure centres are not located, and then it goes on to say a lot of the things that are going to be included, and market and promote services. How are you going to encourage all ages to take part in leisure activities, and how are you going to measure success to show that the population has taken up these extra facilities and activities that you're going to provide?
Well, in terms of the green spaces and green, you know, people in the walkways and cycleways, I mean, there will be a number of different ways that we will be measuring that. I mean, and if you look at the report, I mean, we're talking about active travel, we're talking about active schools, we're talking about people getting out and walking. And so what we're trying to provide is the opportunity in a number of different ways, because not everybody is a sports person. Some people just want to go out for a walk, and some people want to engage in, you know, yoga and other things. So the important thing is to give people the opportunity for them to be able to participate in the activity of their choice. And to do that, I think that what you've got to do is to make sure that the opportunities are there within the locality. And in the leisure local, that means, I mean, working with schools. I mean, we're already working with, a couple of schools, so that we can release the facilities that they've got, so that people can sort of get involved in that. So it's a question of working with sports clubs. It's a question of working with schools. It's a question with, promoting our leisure services and our walkways and cycleways. It's encouraging people to sort of travel in a more active way on their bike or walk there. So, I mean, all those things, I think, contribute to people being given the opportunity to get out there and be more active. And if you're talking about about how you measure that, I suppose you measure it by, the number of people that are participating in sports, the number of people who are cycling more, reduction in traffic, people who are using the schools and engaging with the schools. There's a whole range of things is that where you can measure that. But it's about creating the environment for people to be given the opportunity.
Can I bring in Councillor Green?
Thank you, Chairman. Could Councillor Tibbs point to the consultation with users of the leisure facilities that supported the council's decision to bring leisure in-house? And further to that, what consultation will there be with the users moving forwards as we transition to providing services in-house again? So what consultation will we have over any issues that may arise and any potential improvements to services and facilities that the users wish to see? Thank you.
What do you mean by consultation with the users? What do you mean? Can you just explain what you mean by consultation with users?
Yeah, certainly. So by users, I mean the people that use the facilities. So the gyms, the swimming pools, the badminton, squash courts, etc., etc. And to consult with those users on what they wish to see in the future.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that would be fundamental. I think you can do that in a number of different ways. One, those users that are using the facilities is asking them for an assessment of what they think it is, what they would like to see going forward, and even approaches to those people who are not using the facilities, and try and consult with them to say what would encourage you to use those facilities. So I mean, yeah, I see that as fundamental and ongoing, really. I mean, and if you're looking for continuing improvement in the facilities, I mean, I think that is, is essential. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Sharples, I think you wanted to come in.
Sorry, Chairman. Can I thank Councillor Tibbington for that response? But he didn't actually respond to the first part of the question.
Which was the consultation. Well,
yeah, I mean, sorry. I'll repeat it if you wish.
Yeah, go on.
That's helpful. Yeah, certainly. It's just, could you point to any consultation which supported a decision by the council to move the leisure services in-house, please?
Well, I think what convinced us, I mean, first of all, I think that we've always had the inclination of taking it back in-house, because we've been taking it back into control, and so that we could utilise those facilities to implement the strategy that we have produced. Coupled with that, if you look at the situation that had developed, we knew for some time that the contract with Serco was to terminate on the 31st of March. Then we had I can remember being on a scrutiny committee some time ago when the then incumbent of this portfolio was asked what discussions had taken place in relation to renewing the contract, and that was about 4 years ago. So, I would concede that perhaps there should have been more discussion in relation to what was happening when we knew that the contract was going to terminate on the 31st of March. But with COVID, when we looked at that, and then we looked at the demands that were being made by Serco in relation to the compensation payments that they wanted, there was something that was a cause for concern. So what we did is that we examined what the options were in terms of going forward with the contract, and I suppose they were, so there was basically three options. First option was whether or not we should continue with Serco and just extend it, whether or not we should put it out to tender, or thirdly, whether we should take it back in-house. And it suited us as a cabinet to take it back in-house, because that would feed into the strategy that I previously described. So, we do know what the sort of the options are there. And we're looking at the commercial aspect of it as well. And we've considered all that, and we decided to take it back in-house. And indeed, it is a decision that is being made by council.
Thank you. Can I just bring the Chief Executive in?
Thank you. Thanks, Mick, for that explanation. I think the question around consultation, the facts are that we didn't feel there was any need to do that consultation. It was about a commercial contract, and a decision was made not to. There's no need to consult users on that. I agree with Mick. I think as we move forward, in terms of their contentment or otherwise with the services as they currently stand and what new services they might need into the future, that'll be all part of our planning and business planning for leisure services in the future.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Sharples?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm referring to page 17, paragraph 30. Okay, paragraph 13. It talks about the new playing pitch hub in Banbury Bridge, and talks about the various costs involved. And it mentions a bid from the Football Foundation for a sum of £966,000. I was just wondering what happens if that bid fails.
It'll be oops, won't it? Well, within the budget there has been an allocation in there for some time of about 4.2 million. So if it should fail, then we would have to fund it. But my hope is that we will get that, and if we do get that, then that will give us other monies in which we could invest in other playing 3G pitches elsewhere. But putting it bluntly, if that fails, then we'll have to pay for it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Will Adams?
Thank you, Chair. What difference will our customers and staff see from bringing the leisure in-house?
Well, I hope they will see an increase in the facilities. I hope they will see a pricing policy that encourages people to get into and use the leisure centres. I hope that they will see the investment going into the leisure centre that makes it more attractive to get people in. But the main thing is that it will be our responsibility to sort of maintain and manage that facility, and I hope that what they will see going forward is a super duper facilities that match anything that the private sector can offer, and offer it at a decent price that people can afford.
Okay, Councillor Sue Jones.
Thank you. Can I come back? Sorry.
Sorry, yeah. Councillor Adams, take you first.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mick, for that. In terms of obviously, looking at the staff a bit more, obviously the council's plan to become a living wage employer is there and for us all to see. I presume, is it our intention that transpires to leisure centre staff as well? Thank you.
Well, in terms, I mean, I think we've already declared is that when we talk about rail jobs, which are properly paid jobs, I mean, we have declared that we will be an example employer. And in terms of leisure staff, I mean, they will come over under 2p, and that many of them transferred out under 2p. So they've maintained, well, they've maintained, terms and conditions of employment similar to what local authority workers do. But yeah, it will be our intention for them to assimilate into the terms and conditions of employment of the authority. I hope does that explain it? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, if I can now bring Councillor Sue Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I think we'll all agree after all this discussion that this is a big step forward for South Ribble Council to take the leisure centres in-house, and I'm very excited about it. Will the performance of the in-house leisure centres be monitored in the same way as the rest of the council through scrutiny, budget and performance panel? And do you feel possibly at this stage, as we did with Worden Hall, that maybe you would consider reporting on a more regular basis until it's clearly up and running? Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, when he was here before scrutiny, explained, the finances that were involved in it. I mean, I think that we know what they're there, but certainly going forward, there will have to be some aspect of a business plan and, commercial viability. And I'm sure that, he will keep an eye on that. From my view, I suppose is that I'll be looking for more throughput and people getting in there and doing it. But yeah, there will have to be some sorts of measurements, monitoring on aspect like all other sorts of aspects of the council's functioning. Yeah, there will be.
Okay, if you could keep all your answers to that. Sorry, Councillor Will Adams is indicating.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, yeah, just in relation to the performance, I understand the need to look at the business side, but I also want to look at kind of the social side and the health, well-being side of it too. Will our strategy and our performance indicators be evidence-led? and will that drive the policy of our leisure centres at that point? An example of that would be if to target certain groups or certain areas where there is health and wellbeing challenges.
Absolutely. I think that that's fundamental. You know, there's always a balance to be drawn, isn't there, with anything? But I mean, as far as health and well-being is concerned, I mean, we've got to make sure that the facilities that we've got are available for people to use them. And if that is excluding a number of groups, whether they, you know, for whatever reason, whether they may be less mobile, whether they may be disadvantaged from an income point of view, then we've got to be continually examining the reasons why people don't participate in activity, and you know, changing our policies or reaching out to them to make sure that we are offering equal opportunity and equal outcomes for those people regardless, and we really don't want to be discriminating against anybody. So yeah, I think that's a constant. We've got to continue to look at that and monitor it and make sure that we are reaching out to those people who perhaps are not, that we want to use the facilities and we want to get more active, that are not doing for some reasons that is beyond their control. It's up to us to help them. So yeah, definitely sign up to that.
If I can bring in Neil Anderson.
Just very quickly, Chair, Councillor Adams, one real example of that is the bid for the Football Foundation. So we've had to put in place a programme of activities that has targets against particular groups. So, for example, women into football, getting people with disabilities, getting people from particular local communities that have a particular local area. And we've had to put targets against those. And it's that kind of approach we want to apply to the leisure centres generally. Within a commercial framework, because they do need to bring income in, but it's that kind of rigidity of trying to map out how the leisure centres can reach new audiences. And we all hope the Football Foundation bid is successful, but part of its success will be based on reaching new groups within the community to access not just football, but activities on the new 3G pitches.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Green?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Tiverton, what is the long-term ambition of the council with regards to the future of our leisure centres and facilities? And do you intend for those facilities to be managed in-house permanently moving forwards?
In terms of the intention, I mean, I don't see us in the future changing the intention for them to be managed by us, by the council. I think going forward, I mean, what my vision would be is that we as a council are a beacon when it comes to leisure facilities, and that we've got up-to-date facilities that are being well used and being well used by those groups referred to by Councillor Adams, you know, right across the spectrum, where, you know, whether they be less able or whether they be Olympic standard athletes. So, I mean, I just think that that's the sort of the aim, the ambition, the objective of all of us, isn't it? Is to have our residents participating in activities and improving their health and well-being. And if the facilities that we've got on offer as a council are of that calibre, then they will be, and are not only of the calibre, but are welcoming for those groups, then I'll be absolutely delighted.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring Councillor Karen Walton in?
Thank you, Chair. So historically, the committee, sorry, there's a really bad echo. Historically, the committee has scrutinised the Leisure and Trust and Circle. So what do you think the future role of the Leisure Trust will be, and how are we going to make the most of their expertise and experience moving into the future?
Well, moving into the future, we might not have a trust. We might have a local authority trading company, and in terms of building in or tapping into expertise, well, then we will be tapping into any sort of expertise that there is there to make sure that we reach the objectives that, you know, I've been talking about in relation to leisure facilities. But going forward and how we manage our facilities, it's likely that there will not be. I don't know about. I mean, I suspect there won't be a need for the trust. And in saying that, I mean, you know, I do thank them, and I have thanked them personally for those people who've been on the trust, who are in effect volunteers and have done, you know, a dedicated job for the last 15 years.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Colin Coulton.
Thank you, Chair. How do you think the in-house leisure facilities will work effectively with other council services and local communities? Also, for example, will they work with LCC youth services, etc.? And also, is there an intention to review the pricing policies of the leisure centres to make the facilities more accessible to the general public? Thank you.
Well, frankly, we'll work with any partners that share our ambition in terms of, you know, getting out and getting people involved in activities. So that's the answer to that is clear. Yes, we will work with anybody who wants to work with us and partner us in moving forward. I think, you know, I have answered that previously. I mean, when you talk about pricing and that, it's all got to be on the basis of, you know, can you attract and reach out to those groups that hitherto have perhaps not been participating in activities or using leisure centres. And I think in that aspect of it, I mean, that's one of the most important things and exciting things is that it gives us the responsibility, and I accept that responsibility for us to get out there and get those people and encourage those people to take part in, you know, and use the leisure facilities that are available. Now, in doing that, there's a number of things and factors that are taken into account to do it. But amongst all those factors will be, you know, our pricing. I mean, and certainly for certain groups, we'd like to be able to offer free of charge usage, but you know, that's all got to be considered going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, if I could bring in Councillor Matt Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Councillor Tiverington. Have any steps been taken to work with organisations such as Park Run to promote walking, jogging and running to residents of South Ribble who may not be able to afford to attend a leisure centre or a gym? I was happy to see the junior park run start at Worden Park. Have any thoughts been given to starting an adult park run at Worden Park or anywhere in the South Ribble Borough?
The simple answer is yes. I mean, yeah, I look forward to when we can get. I mean, yeah, I seen you, I think, at the park run, or a couple of park runs actually. I mean, seems to be in the dark and distant past. But yeah, I mean, park runs, those kind of events, getting people involved, you know, the bikeability, all those events. Frankly, you know, we will work with any organisation, and I'm sure, you know, the staff have been doing that in terms of sports development and others. We really, yeah, I mean, 100%, we'll work with anybody that offers some sort of possibility to get active and enjoy and come together. I can really reassure you, yeah, we will work with anybody. And I mean, if you've got anybody's got any suggestions of who we can work with, then yeah, let us know. We will do it. I think, again, you know, I think that's all part of the vision, and you know, it's an essential that we do work with people such as what you've described. So yeah, I can give you that assurance.
Okay. Can I bring in Councillor Colin Sharp?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, page 20, paragraph 35 talks about rough sleeping, etc. How many rough sleepers has the council historically known about, and what steps have been taken to provide permanent accommodation for these residents?
Well, in terms of rough sleepers, traditionally they have been quite low within the borough, and I'm sure you'll appreciate, I mean, very often if you've got rough sleepers, there's a whole host of different factors and things to take into account, and many of them have got quite complex needs. But we have always endeavoured, and staff have always endeavoured, where there has been rough sleepers identified, they are approached, and accommodation is offered to them. You know, whether that's temporary, and you know, we try and get them permanent. But yeah, when a rough sleeper is identified, then you know, we will do our utmost to make sure that they don't have to rough sleep. As I say, sometimes it's a complex matter, and sometimes they don't want help from the authority, but I think it is important that we are able to offer them help and assistance, because we don't want anybody having to rough sleep. So yeah, we approach all of them.
Thank you.
If I can take you to page 21, paragraph 45. The council commission services are going out for either the same or similar services. How will the exercise look at service improvements, or if there are different models that could be more effective?
Well, I think during COVID, I mean, there has been, sorry, am I looking at that? We're looking at paragraph 55. Oh, right, I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, I said all that without turning my microphone on. You can hear me, nobody else can.
Yeah, well, those services will continue, but they will have to be, you know, they will have to go through a procurement, you know, process, and you know, they will be reviewed as it states in the paragraph, and they will go through the procurement process. I mean, but the sanctuary scheme and the drop-in service for young people 6 to 25, and the pre-tenancy training, floating support to promote tenancy sustainment for all ages, will continue. And you know, there's bits. I mean, I think, well, I know that members will realise is that there's sometimes, I mean, there's about 300 and odd different sorts of funding streams where applications have got to be made for grants. And it does take an awful lot of time from officers, but I mean, I can assure the committee that as far as we're concerned, where there is an opportunity to pursue grant funding for any of the things that we've contained within here, we do pursue it. And I mean, we've been reasonably successful. But I mean, if you're looking for an assurance to continue with those, yeah, we will do.
Thank you. Can I bring in Jennifer Mullin?
One of the things that has come out One of the things that has come out of COVID is that we do have a lot more intelligence about our residents than we've ever had before. We've had more information about our vulnerable residents. We've had more information about people who are rough sleeping, or people who have, as we call it, sofa surfing, because they've come to the fore, and we've learnt more information about them. So there is a lot of information that we've gained from that work that we've done to support the vulnerable in our society. And I think what we can do is we're going to use that information on, and to review what the effects COVID has had, and put those into those bids, and also put them into the service specifications that we're looking for to be able to support residents and people who are homeless. And I think the big thing that's come out for us is tenancy support, that especially for younger people, that they keep and secure the tenancy, and that we can provide that support through the voluntary sector and through ourselves to enable young people to get a tenancy in the first place, but also to support them through that tenancy. And part of the bids and the tendering exercise that we're going to do is use all that intelligence to put that in there and make sure that they're providing the services for the new world after COVID.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Karen Walton?
Thank you, Chair. Will the outstanding medium priority food hygiene visits be carried out as planned? And whilst the report says we are meeting the expectations of the Food Standard Agency, how confident are we about the safety of food premises in South Ribble?
Well, obviously, I mean, and as the report states, I mean, there has been, issues in relation to food standards. I mean, many aren't operating. I mean, and the environmental health have been switched to other things. I mean, I think the intention would be to get back to a degree of normality as soon as possible. I don't know if Jennifer wants to say anything on that.
During the COVID pandemic, what we have been doing is we've been targeting our high-risk, non-compliant businesses. So our high-risk businesses. So our businesses are rated in two ways, but they're rated on the what we call the scores on the doors, the star system, but they're also rated on a risk system, which is from A to E. So we've been concentrating on our high-risk A's, B's and C's. But as you can see, there is a big long list of our lower risk premises that we haven't been able to inspect because of lots of them have been closed down, especially, but also because of the work that's we've done on COVID. But we have got a plan next year to get that then back up and inspected on the inspection programme. The Food Standards Agency have talked about looking at different standards and looking at different ways of doing inspections. So we're going to wait to hear from the Food Standards Agency about that, but that's not going to stop us trying to get back to some, again, once these businesses start opening up, getting back to the full inspection programme. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, can I take you to page 25, paragraph 67? Road traffic injuries and deaths are always included high on South Ribble's health profile. What's the council doing to help tackle this with partners? And will the speed indicator devices owned by the council be rolled out again, and when?
Yeah, I share your concerns regarding road safety because, I mean, we've scored consistently high, I think, for, well, a number of years. I mean, because I can remember when I was the chair of Scrutiny, that was always, you know, identified. I have to say, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that we do really need to have a look at that and examine ways, I mean, about what we can do about it. You know, tonight, I mean, I can't really give you an answer. I mean, I think there will be a number of sort of issues and factors that we can do, and I can only, you know, assure you is that we will look at it and see what we can do, and indeed, you know, any suggestions that Scrutiny have got to improve that, we'd act on.
Okay, thank you. If I can bring Jennifer in.
So County Council and the Road Safety Partnership are invited to our Community Safety Partnership meetings, and we are working with them to look at that. From our point of view, from our sports development team, we're doing a lot of bike safety training for young people in schools. We're doing active travel plans for older people to travel safely, and obviously with the green links, trying to get people on safe routes. So there is a lot of work that we're doing to try and keep kids, especially on bikes, safe. And I think from a county point of view, we are working with the partnership as much as we can. We have got SPID devices in the council, and we invested, I think, 2 years ago in additional SPID devices. So we will be putting them up around the area. They can be put in locations and hotspots. And we've also got some monitoring devices as well that we're working with the police. So there is some work that's being done, but there is a heck of a lot more that can be done working with county on this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring Councillor Green in?
Thanks, Jeremy. Just on that point, I appreciate South Ribble are making efforts, as are the county, but ultimately, responsibility for enforcing speed limits lies with the police. And I'm just wondering whether at some point we could actually bring the police in, or the Police and Crime Commissioner, whoever he or she may be, after May, to actually respond to some of this, because it is clearly a concern for residents right across Sanford, but it's something which is frequently raised with many of us, and it's something that we need to tackle. But I don't think necessarily at a borough level we can do that, but we need the police to step up to take more enforcement action. Thank you.
Thank you.
That assurance,
yeah, I would certainly welcome the Police and Crime Commissioner appearing in front of us. So perhaps that's an invitation that can be extended after May the 6th. Sorry, there was I'm being heckled from further down the room. And please control yourself. Thank you. Again, if I can raise another issue, and this may well be pertinent given recent events about whether women actually feel safe on our streets. A key element of people feeling safe is street lighting. The Highways Authority deliberately dimmed some lights in the borough to save energy, which might make our streets feel less safe. Can we lobby the Community Safety Partnership to take this up with Lancashire County Council?
Well, yeah, I think, as you say, I mean, you know, the safety of women on our streets is obviously, you know, a major concern, and you know, is a major issue at the moment. And I think, you know, I think we have an obligation to consider, you know, and not just South Ribble, Lancashire, the government, everybody. We do need to sort of examine the root causes of what makes women feel unsafe going out, you know, overnight. And if lighting is one of those, I mean, I think it's one aspect of many, but I think there are a number that need to be considered, and if that's one of them, yeah, we certainly need to sort of work with partners to address the the issue. And if street lighting is one of them, then yeah, we'll work with Lancashire to do that.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Jackie Alty?
Good evening. Thank you. On page 26, paragraph 70, thinking about the national picture, what additional practical things does the council do to prevent domestic abuse and support victims? Is there anything more that we can do with our partners on domestic abuse?
I suppose, yes. I mean, there is always something more that we can do. And well, you know, the report is there. I mean, and you know, it's quite tragic, really, when we talk about, you know, 4 domestic homicide reviews. You know, in a borough such as ours, it gives you some idea of the magnitude of the problem. And I suppose we've all got to do much better. I mean, and certainly take away from this evening. Well, not just from this evening, but I mean, I think it's something that we need to concentrate our mind on and have a look and see what else we can do. And I would promise to do or commit to doing anything that we possibly can to make the streets safer or to protect people from, you know, domestic abuse. I mean, it is a major problem and it is a big issue, and it's one of those that we should address. So yeah, I'm prepared to revisit that with officers and discuss with Scrutiny and other members about ways and means in which how we can improve what we're doing already.
Okay. Councillor Matt Trafford.
Thanks, Chair. Top of page 26, there's reference to creation of a safe space for reporting hate crime. What is that safe space? And then with that in mind, further down the page, when there's reference to what we have to do to engage with the prevent agenda, I'd like to know what safeguarding there is to make sure that people of colour aren't being disproportionately targeted throughout that. Thank you.
Well, I want Jennifer, could you come in there and explain exactly what the safe space is?
Yeah, so we're looking to work with community groups and obviously our own staff to look at areas around the borough where people can report hate crime in a safe space that they feel able to talk to people that they relate to. So we're working with groups all around the borough to get them trained in hate crime, how to recognise hate crime, but also how to report it properly, to try and encourage people to report it through to the right channels, especially with the police. With the prevent agenda, what we're trying to do is to do a lot of training for our community groups and for ourselves and our staff about the prevent agenda, and it is not just about race, and it's not targeted on particular race or ethnicity or religious. It's the way it's targeted is on a safeguarding footprint. How can we safeguard our community to prevent them being drawn into terrorism, to prevent them being drawn into any of those sorts of activities? And one of the areas of concern is the far right rather than anything else. So there's quite a bit of work going on to make sure that people don't just look at people's skin colour or religion, that we can make sure that the prevent agenda and to safeguard our residents and community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sue Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at paragraph 77, I think it's quite remarkable the work that has been done by South Ribble with regard to the holiday hunger programme. The fact that we're now supporting all 53 schools in the area. So it's a comment more than anything, but I would ask, can we sustain this in the long term?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think when I referred to in my opening remarks about looking at it in sort of three components, I mean, when we formed an administration, we did, in fact, we had already identified that there was a problem because of the experiences that we'd had within the communities, that people were, because of 10 years of austerity, were having to juggle between, you know, paying the rent or the mortgage, feeding their children, or, you know, or feeding themselves or heating the house. So the problem did exist before COVID, and it's got worse during COVID. My view is that there needs to be a sea change in terms of policy, because I think it's an absolute disgrace that whilst we're accepting the responsibility to sort of feed our children during holiday periods, and of course with COVID, they had to stay at home, so the period become more. But when we're talking about children who are suffering because they can't be fed during periods, when we're the 5th richest country in the world, then there is something tragically wrong. And if you ask the question of whether or not it can be sustained, well, it just can't be tolerated that our children are not fed. So it'll have to be sustained somewhere or other.
Sue, do you want to come back on that, Sue?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that response. Can I just take the opportunity to, I think, to say on behalf of everybody, to thank our officers for the amazing work that they've done over that period with regard to the holiday hunger scheme, and I think we should give a big thank you to them all. And can I also thank you for the support that you've given to the scrutiny review with regard to the health inequalities. It's been a difficult time for everybody. I think our thanks are in order. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coulton, have you decided not to come in? You're on mute. We can't actually hear what you're saying.
Sorry. I will come in, but on the chart, if you divide the number of food parcels into the equivalent meals, they all come out about 5, and yet some of the holidays are 2 weeks, one is 6 weeks, and so there seems to be a bit of a mismatch somewhere in the figures. That's all the point I was going to make.
Well, they are the figures. I mean, I think the figure to take is we've delivered the equivalent of 35,295 meals. So I think we just take, well, I don't know if credit's the right word, but we just take reassurance that we've been able to deliver that many meals to children in our borough. So I take a degree of comfort from that.
Thank you. 2 things. First of all, could I remind members or anybody participating in the meeting to mute themselves, because we did get a bit of feedback there. And I apologise for laughing at Councillor Titherington's comment of it being a mishmash potato. So, can I bring in Councillor Karen Walton?
Thank you, Chair. My question is about on page 29, item 88 about air quality. Please, could you talk us through the process of measuring air quality in South Ribble? And the report says that the air quality action plan implemented has been delayed. It also says that there are 2 areas of South Ribble, that's of Leyland and Tidygate, where the figures accepted by DEFRA are very close to the unacceptable figures. Could you tell us what steps the council are taking to why the implementation of the air quality action plan has not progressed, and what work with partners is taking place to help to reduce the amount of air pollution in these areas and bringing back the action plan on track?
Well, I hope that we can get it back on track as quickly as possible. I don't think I'm going to kid anybody about how easy that is. I mean, because we've been trying to, well, as a council, we've been trying to tackle the problems of air quality over a long period of time, and it takes a lot of doing and a lot of convincing. I mean, we've tried to redirect traffic. We've tried to sort of, well, we are introducing more and more electric charging points. And it does state in there that the air quality management areas, 3 of them are significantly under the objective value, whilst some of them are just below the objective value. And in some ways, I have to say, I mean, I sort of question those assessments because I certainly know of areas locally when I go about where I think, you know, the level of traffic and the air quality is of an unacceptable level. I point to paragraph 90 there, where it says what we have got to work on is, the promotion of transport, using transport. I think we've said about active travel, getting people out of the cars into travelling, educating informant programs, partnership working with schools, working with county highways and other partners to get it back onto a proper footing and sort of get attacking those air quality. But I'm not able to promise any sort of quick fixes here, or other than to say is that we will continue to work along those lines with partners to make sure that the air quality within the borough is of an acceptable level.
Can I just bring in Jennifer?
It's just to talk about air quality monitoring. So as everybody knows, we've got air quality monitors all around the district. There's about 50 air quality monitoring stations, but they're not real-time air quality monitoring stations. They are they're called diffusion tubes, and we have to send them away to get them tested, and the labs bring the results back to us. What we are looking at now is to introduce some real-time air quality monitoring. We've never done that before because it's generally been cost prohibitive. It's been hundreds of thousands, but there's been a couple of companies that have come forward that have been testing out some new air quality monitors that are mobile, that can be affixed to lampposts. So we're just doing some work at the moment to look and cost out some real-time air quality monitors. So we're hoping, if we can, get at least 2, possibly 3. So one, we've had one in Penwitham on loan, and that we've been testing, and that's gone down really well. It's called an AQ mesh, and that's really worked. So we're looking at purchasing some of these meshes or another system to look to get some real time. But not only will it do the NO2 that we've always monitored, but it also can monitor particulates. So it will be really interesting to look at our particulates. And one of the things that we're particularly concerned with particulates is wood burning stoves. And one of the things that we'll be able to look at is particulates and the amount of particulates in our atmosphere. And one of the things that we're looking at to do is a campaign about wood burning stoves and the high risk of poor indoor and outdoor air quality due to them as well. So there's quite a bit of work looking at how we monitor and where we monitor. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I know that it's very hard to get partners involved, and I hope that I wish every success in trying to get Lancashire County Council on board with this air quality. Thank you, Jennifer.
Karen, it might be opportune to bring in your last question now as it's related, although before you do, if I can bring in Councillor Green.
Yes, just briefly, if I may, Chairman. I'm not, whilst I'm a county council, I'm not here to defend the county council, but just for the benefit of members, we've put some new extra funding in. Part of which, one of the streams for that, is to deal with air quality issues, because we do have some issues across the county. So hopefully the county council will be able to do ever more to deal with some of these issues moving forward. So that's just for your information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Yes, so my last question is, what is the relationship between the Air Quality Action Plan and the Climate Emergency Action Plan? Can you explain what connection there is?
I suppose the short answer is no, but, because, well, I think that they are intrinsically linked, frankly, and I think that they have to be put together, and I really don't understand at the moment why they are separated. In terms of we've got the climate emergency task group or group, who don't seem to be sort of talking about air quality, because we have an air quality action plan. So I think they are connected, and I will undertake to sort of to have a look at that and see how they can be combined a bit more, because I mean, you know, the overall objective is the same, really, isn't it?
Jennifer.
Right, the reason why we've got two is because we are statutorily bound to have an air quality action plan. Because we've got air quality management areas, we have to have an specific air quality action plan, which is outside of a climate change plan, even though they can feed into each other. That's step by statute and have to have certain things in there because of our air quality management areas. So we're not able to change that legally. But air quality should be part of that climate change group, and that we can work together, and the activities in the climate change group will impact significantly on air quality, but we do have to have a specific air quality plan by legislation.
Okay, thank you. You okay with that, Karen? Yeah, okay, thanks. Councillor Jackie Olty.
Hi. On page 29, paragraph 89, it's obvious, really, that holding meetings remotely and in hybrid form has saved carbon emissions of members and officers attending meetings. As the temporary regulations allowing virtual meetings are due to lapse in May, for this reason and others, will the Cabinet be writing to the Secretary of State asking for the option to be made permanent?
Yes, I think we probably will. We will consider that. From my point of view, I don't see why not. So yeah, I would think that we probably would consider writing to the Secretary of State to sort. I mean, I know that you've expressed the view that it does make it easier for people who do have difficulties in attending in person. It does make them, it makes it easier for them to participate in meetings. And I think if that's the case, it's something that should be considered.
Thank you. Certainly something I would agree with. I mean, it's a 14-mile round trip from Penwitham to here. Imagine what that's like at the county council, where you've got 17 members of not particularly a large committee coming from all over Lancashire to sit in County Hall for half an hour. So, yeah, that would be welcome. I can't see anybody else on committee raising a hand. Oh, yes, I can. Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. One issue that we've not touched on tonight is, in terms of health and wellbeing, is obesity of residents, particularly children. And I just wonder what steps we are taking as a council to deal with that issue. It's something that I have raised with Councillor Evans from a planning perspective, because I know the Director of Public Health for Lancashire issued a report quite some time ago now, talking about the link between the proximity of takeaways, etc., and schools, and whether planning policies should be changed, etc. But I've not heard anything further back, and I know it's frustrating at times that planning policies can take some time to come to light, but I'm just wondering whether Councillor Tiverton has any view on that, and if he can do anything to speed that up, so that we can take appropriate action and start to tackle this issue of childhood obesity, which causes so many other problems down the line, of course, for members of our community. Thank you.
I agree. It is a big issue, and it needs to be addressed. I mean, in relation to the sort of the planning aspect of it, well, I wouldn't hold my breath in that regard, because I mean, ever since I've been on the council, I know that people have raised objections to takeaways and such like being located, and people saying there's too many of them, and they've invariably been ruled out because they haven't got the the policies there, and they haven't got the planning committee has not got the ability to sort of rule it out on that basis. But I mean, that doesn't say that we can't do something, and we should be doing something. And I think it is one of those situations is that where the hubs can now play a real part. I mean, because we've now got the data, and I think somebody mentioned it earlier, is really, if you've got the data, I mean, that should inform policy. So I think it's a real thing that, drilling it down, if you look at it, look at the data that's available within the neighbourhood hubs, is that it is something that, that can be addressed through education, and other means, while still lobbying for some sort of change in relation to planning. But yeah, I think it is something that it does need to be addressed, and I think the best way of doing that is through the hubs.
Jennifer.
Just to add in addition, we've obviously got our Active Schools programme that we're doing with schools and young people to act on obesity. We've also got our Active Community programme with our Active Streets and our parks, and the bikeability work that we're doing. We've also got an Active Health. We're looking at weight management for adults. We've just been invited to join a group working with officers from all around the county, including the county council, to look at obesity and looking at projects that we can do. I think there is a funding opportunity that's come in to look at obesity and childhood obesity and what we can put in there, and what additional work that we can do. So there is a lot going on that we're looking at, and hopefully in the coming months there'll be more to tell about that, and obviously more projects coming forward to deal with childhood obesity, especially in preschool children. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members not on committee? I can't see anybody indicating, in which case, Darren, could you take us through potential recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Just some reflections on the discussion members have had this evening. Potential recommendations for consideration are that the committee thanks the Cabinet member and Director for attending and their detailed report. The committee asks that future portfolio reports include more details on how success and performance is measured and managed. The committee welcomes the Cabinet member's commitment to report leisure performance and provide regular updates to the scrutiny in the future. Consideration be given to organising a park run in Worden Park. The homelessness commissioning process review potential service improvement models. The council looks at what can be done to improve road safety in South Ribble with partners, including rolling out speed indicator devices. Scrutiny invites the Police and Crime Commissioner and relevant partners to a future meeting to discuss road safety. The Cabinet member be asked to lobby the County Council about the practice of dimming streetlights and its potential impact on community safety. The committee commends the Council on the holiday hunger scheme, and that the Council writes to the Secretary of State to encourage him to allow virtual council meetings to be made in the future. And finally, the community hubs be asked to consider childhood obesity in their area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is everybody happy with those? And is there anything anybody would like to add? Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just pick up on the last two of those recommendations, please? So, first of all, with regard to the obesity, and I thank Jennifer and Councillor Tiverington for their responses, which are very much welcome. But I do think we still need to lobby a bit more regarding a change to the planning policy, and I think there's a possibility that we could do that as a council, either individually on our own or working with our neighbouring authorities in Chorley and Preston. And I think that's something that we should look at and try to bring forward expeditiously. With regard to the one about writing to lobby to allow virtual meetings to take place, while there are clearly some benefits, we've been forced almost to embrace technology over the last 12 months, and probably most members would have been reluctant if we'd asked them 18 months ago to have virtual or hybrid meetings moving forward. But we've had to embrace that technology, and we've shown that it can work. And there are clearly a number of benefits to having those meetings. However, as soon as it's safe to do so, I do believe that we should be having proper meetings of the council and all its committees, and those meetings should, wherever possible, take place in the Civic Centre building moving forwards. That's not to say that we shouldn't possibly allow certain members to join if there is a clear reason. But I think there needs to be a clear reason for individual members to actually take part in that way, and to just allow it as an hybrid meeting where you just freely choose what you want to do moving forward. I don't think that is necessarily the best way to conduct democracy and the efficient and effective running of council meetings. In actual fact, my personal view is a virtual meeting can work absolutely brilliantly, or a proper meeting works even better. Hybrid meetings can sometimes do have problems from time to time, because you feel a little bit distanced from other members that are in the meeting. Like tonight, there's a number of members in the council chamber, and it feels that they're in one meeting and everybody that's outside are in another meeting. But I just urge a bit of caution. I think, yes, we've shown that technology can work, and that there might be a place for hybrid meetings, and certainly if it's a short meeting of something, it's a good way of getting members' views and members together without having impacts such as the environment and other factors. But for proper meetings of council and committees, I think wherever possible, we should all be in the room unless there are exceptional reasons. So it's just to put some element of caution on that recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Green. Wherever possible, unless there is an exception, I think for committees, cabinet and council, we should be in the Civic Centre where we can have proper discussions. As Councillor Green said, you sometimes feel quite isolated on your own at committee meetings. There is a place for hybrid meetings. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be hybrid meetings, but I think for the main meetings of the council, they should, unless there is an exceptional circumstance in the civic centre.
Can I bring in the Chief Executive?
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up Councillor Green's point on obesity and the planning system. So I noticed everybody groaned at the point at which we were waiting for the planning system to catch up. There is the possibility to resolve that through a supplementary planning document, which could be adopted in the interim, awaiting the outcome of the new local plan. So just to, if the committee so wished, we could firm up the recommendation to ask the Director of Planning and Development to consider the implementation of a supplementary planning document across this. It'll have to be across the central Lancashire area predominantly, to deal with the obesity issue.
Okay, can we accept that as one of our recommendations then? And including that, is everybody happy with the recommendations as they've been put? I appreciate there's some concern over writing to the Secretary of State about virtual meetings, but it's allowing them to take place. I think it's then down to each council to decide how they implement it. So if we're all okay with that, is that agreed? Yes, thank you. If I can thank Councillor Titherington and the officers for coming along and taking part this evening. If I can now move on to item 6, which is scrutiny matters. 6A is the scrutiny review of health inequalities. The panel is continuing to meet on a regular basis. We have had presentations by a number of people now. We're still trying to get to the appropriate person from the Department of Work and Pensions, and we aim to report back in the summer. 6B, Lancashire County Council Health Scrutiny Committee. The Chair hasn't got an update because it's not meeting till next Tuesday, after which I can update committee. 6C is meetings and training attended by scrutiny members. Has anybody got any feedback on anything they've attended? It would appear not. 6D is the forward plan. So members are asked to review the Cabinet forward plan and identify any items of interest to the committee. Clearly, this evening we've identified COVID and how the council has responded to it. There's been a request for further scrutiny of leisure as we move forward, and also an invitation to whoever the Police and Crime Commissioner is following May the 6th. So is there anything else that anybody would like to raise at this point? And if not, if you could feed it in to Darren, we can certainly consider it. Which takes us to 6E, Scrutiny Committee Forward Plan. And I probably just covered a number of items there as well. So again, if anybody has anything else that we haven't discussed tonight, if you can feed it into Darren, and we can bring that forward onto the plan. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you for everybody for your attendance this evening. Thank you to those who've viewed remotely on YouTube, and enjoy the rest of your evening.